This week's Torah portion is one of the most pivotal in the history of the world. Now, it's funny to say that because last week's Torah portion was one of the most pivotal in the history of the world. And the Torah portion before that was one of the most pivotal in the history of the world. We're in that season where if you don't pay attention to the Torah portions, you miss context for everything else that happens in history, right down to today. Hine, pay attention, behold. So the Torah portion is called Lech Lecha because those are the first two important words in the Torah portion, which God is speaking to Abraham. He says Lech Lecha, and it means get out of here, go. Now, just as a reminder historically what has happened, Avram hasn't changed his name yet. Avram and Sarai, his wife, are in Haran, which is in Lebanon, right? Just north of Israel. If you go to Galilee, face north, and you walk, you're in Haran. I've been there. It was illegal. It was in the 70s, and there was a big fence, and there was a gate that was open. And we had a tour bus, and I said, "Oh, I've never been to Lebanon." So I walked through the gate, and the tour bus driver quit. I didn't stay there long, and I turned around and left. Interesting story. But that's Haran. Why were they in Haran? See, there's a big setup about Avram, and we miss all of the setup about Avram because a lot of it takes place not in the Torah, but in the oral law, in Midrash specifically. We don't really know who Avram is. And Midrash, the stories that are told about Avram, really give us insights into who the guy was. And this is really important. Yeah. So, when Avram was a little kid, the story goes. Now understand, Midrash is not Torah. This is not necessarily true. But it gives us an insight and an understanding of who Avram was. So Avram is a little kid. And up until recently, little kids helped in the family business, right? And they didn't hold up their parents for ransom or for salary. It's what you did. You helped in the family business. I was growing up, I helped in the family business. I bet everybody in here, because we're in Florida, we're, God's waiting room. People moved to Fort Myers, Florida so they could be their parents in Naples. So this was going on back then. So Avram is helping his father Terach in the family business. So the Midrash says, family business was that Terach was an idol maker. He sold idols, which is really cool. He's got shelves of idols in his shop, and he sold them, and people, bought the idols. They needed some help. They needed something done. They would buy the idol to the appropriate God, and they would take it home and pray to it, and hopefully that would clear up the difficulty. So Avram has a revelation from Hashem in the middle of the night, and as a little kid figures out that this is wrong. So he does what any normal little kid would do. He wakes up early, goes into the shop, and smashes all of his father's inventory. Okay? Was it the right thing to do? Well, certainly from a kid's point of view, right? You're a 12-year-old kid, you're very sophomoric. And this is the age that you're beginning to figure out that your parents know nothing. And that lasts until you're about 30. So Avram goes into the shop and smashes the idols, and Terach comes into the shop, and lo and behold, all of his idols are smashed. And he scratches his head and says, well, there's only one thing to do, and that's get out of Dodge. So he packs the family up, and they head north out of Ur of Kasdim, known in English as Chaldea. And they walk north along the Tigris and Euphrates River, and past that toward the Mediterranean, and they get to Haran. And there they set up shop. They set up their household, right? They don't make idols anymore. Avram sees to that. But they establish their family plot in Haran. This is important because the descendants come back to Haran to get with family. So family establishes a stronghold in Haran. So God then comes to Avram later. He's already married Sarai. And he says, Lech Lecha, get. Time for you to head south. And so Avram asks, according to Midrash, where am I going? And Hashem says, I'm not going to tell you. This is an open-ended journey. Start walking, and I'll tell you when to stop. That's difficult. First of all, believing that Hashem is telling you to get up and go. And leave all of your family who's been uprooted, but is just settling in and making it right. Now you got to go. Is this really Hashem telling me to do this? And then the question has to cross your mind. Secondly, you don't know where you're going. If you're going to Egypt, well, okay, yeah, I know where that is. But if I'm not going someplace like that, it's difficult. But Avram says to himself, Self, I believe this is Hashem, and so we're going. And Sarai, his wife, says, yes, sir, we're going. So they pack up, and they head south. And eventually, Hashem says, stop. If you look at Avram and where he is with Sarai, something changes. And that is Hashem establishes his covenant with Avram. Now, Avram, or Hashem has established covenants before, right? He established a covenant with Noah. So this is not the first time, but he establishes a different covenant with Avram. Now, in establishing the covenant with Avram, he doesn't eliminate the covenant with Noah. It's just a different covenant. So the question we must ask is, why Avram? Why Avram? I'm so glad you asked, because it's an important question. And the answer is really given to us, not in the Torah, but again in the Midrash. Avram is not just a random character. Avram is known in the Midrash as having established interesting history with great people like Nimrod. He is known for having his tent open on all four sides, meaning anybody could stop. And he would grant them hospitality and feed them, and they had a place to sleep. And he would talk to them about Hashem. He would talk to them about the one God. And God's not stupid. He knew this. And we learned something about selecting leadership from this. Avram was already doing everything that God wanted him to do. Then he was given official title. It wasn't that you're going to have to change because I'm giving you a title. It's that he was already doing it. Now you get the title. So, I mean, even in our synagogues here, who gets the title? Who's a shamus, right? Who's an elder? And the answer is somebody who's already doing the job of the shamus or already doing the job of the elder, you know? Now, Michael and Lisa were already doing the job of the shamus, so he became a shamus, right? PJ was doing it anyway, so he's a head shamus. Why? Well, he was in charge of doing everything. Was he put in charge? No, he was just doing it. So then we gave him the title. You know, Gary's the elder. Why? Because whenever I needed advice, somebody to talk to, Gary was there. And I talked to him. And in the future, there'll be others. And they'll become elders. Not because, I want them to do something, so I'll make them an elder. It's because they're already doing it. We just want to recognize them within the shul, that people can turn to them because they're already doing the job. So it is with Avram. And not only Avram, but Sarai. Right? So Avram is establishing hospitality for people all over the place. Who's doing the work there? Right? Avram is a front man, but Sarai, she is actually the one that's providing the hospitality. Right? The people are coming in. Who's making sure they're fed? Who's making sure they have a place to sleep? Avram is doing what he needs to do and talking to them about God, but he can't do it without Sarai. Sarai is a key ingredient in this team. And so Hashem recognizes this. He said, this is the people that are the leaders. And so he chooses Avram. Lech Lecha. And then he stops in Canaan. And Hashem establishes his covenant. So what's the covenant? The covenant is Avram First off, your name isn't Avram, it's Avraham. And the text is very clear. He's not changing it. He's saying it always was, because he'll be the father of many. And the covenant is, Avram, you continue walking in my way. Continue walking in my way. And be Tam. Now this is translated as perfect, and it doesn't mean perfect, right? Tam is also the word that we use for an unblemished sacrifice. The sacrifice has to be tam, right? Doesn't mean that the sacrifice has to be perfect. It means that we have to look and see no identifiable flaws. Yaakov is described as tam. Is Yaakov without sin? No. Okay, so the term does not mean perfect in the English language sense of the term. What it means that he approaches his faith with God with an innocence, with a purity. He just loves God. Like Abraham does. God says, do something. Abraham says, okay. Noah. God says, do something. Build an ark. Shvuba, shvuba, shvuba. And people say, what are you doing? So I'm building an ark. Why? Well, God said so. Looks stupid. Yeah, it does. Okay, but he's Tom. Just building it. Abraham. Go south. Why? God said so. Where are you going? I don't know. And so he goes. Why? Because he's Tom. He just has faith in God. And so everything that he's been doing before shows that he's Tom. So God has reason to pick him. He's not changing Avram to Abraham. He's not changing anything. Abraham, for his part in the covenant, is simply continuing to do what he's been doing. So what's God's part of the covenant? I'll grant to you and your ancestors this land. This land right here. It's yours. Everlasting covenant. Forever. So there's the covenant. You continue being Tom, and here you get the land. That's the covenant. Now, much like Noah in his covenant, Hashem gives us a sign of the covenant. The sign of the covenant is Brit Milah, is the circumcision. But this is a fairly drastic covenant. And it's a covenant that's established between Abraham and his entire household. Right? It's a covenant of circumcision with him and his offspring, and his servants and everybody in his household. Now, why the Brit Milah? Why the circumcision? And actually, the answer is found in the Gospel of John. It says, in the beginning, God created the Word. Bershita in Aramaic, Haita Hamilta. In the beginning was the Word. Except the word, there's two words for the word in Hebrew. If you can't follow that, go back and play it slow. There's two words for the word in Hebrew. One we're used to, davar. And if you look at Hebrew translations of the New Testament, you'll see the word davar. But if you look at the Aramaic, milta is milah. It's not davar. What it really says is, in the beginning was the milah, and that is translated circumcision, because it is the same root as the word that is used here, mol, or the feminine milah. And it means word. So what's the word that is being spoken of by John? In the beginning was the Word. How were the heavens and the earth created? And God said, Yehi or, let there be light. Do you understand? It was language. It was a word. Two words, actually, that God spoke, that created the universe. This makes perfect sense. And so the covenant of Abraham, the sign of the covenant of Abraham, is a reminder of the creation of the universe. This is part of the great plan that Hashem has given us. And so Abraham circumcises himself at 99 years old. Ishmael, who had been born, and the rest of his household. Everybody that's in his household. And Yitzchak had not yet been born. And Hashem tells Abraham, from now on, your wife's name will not be Sarai. Different than how he spoke to Abraham. From now on, your wife's name will be Sarah instead of Sarai. Now, we know that Torah does not waste letters. Every letter of the Torah is in there for a reason. And so we look and we ask, okay, there's a yud that's gone from Sarai. Where's the yud go? Because Torah doesn't waste a letter. And the reality is that yud comes back to us. It is not wasted, it comes back to us. Remember that Moshe Rabbeinu, his assistant, his name is Hoshea ben Nun, and Moshe Rabbeinu, through divine inspiration, changes Hoshea's name and adds the Yud that came from Sarai. And his name becomes Yehoshua, Joshua. So his name was Hosea ben Nun, and his name becomes Yehoshua, Joshua ben Nun. And of course, he becomes one of the great leaders of the children of Israel because of the Yud that was lost from Sarai's name. Now we have to take this even a step further, because not only is it Yeshua or Yehoshua, but it's Yeshua, which is a derivative of the same name. Look at who Yeshua is in his first coming. He is the Mashiach ben Yosef. Is he the conquering king that becomes the leader of the known world? Not Mashiach ben Yosef, no. Is he the one that gets up and makes great speeches that the whole world recognizes? No, he's not. Is he the king that reigns from the temple? No, he's not. Those things are left for the Mashiach ben David, the Yeshua that is yet to come. So who is Yeshua? He's the one in the background. Yeshua is the one that is granting the ability to have salvation for all of the people of the world. Just like Sarai was in the background and giving us the means to show hospitality, to come and learn about God to all of the peoples of the world. Just as Sarai, without being upfront, without being the leader and the teacher, was the one that actually facilitated all of the good things that Abraham was doing. She was the part of the team that was in the background, just like Yeshua is the part of the team that's in the background that grants salvation to the world. And so the Yud from Sarai comes back to us in Yehoshua ben Nun and Yeshua HaMashiach. Shabbat Shalom.